Hello again. This is part four of oral history and of the tobacco litigation and the master settlement agreement, of which you should know if you saw the other uh, tapes. I don't really like for reasons that are pretty good, and it has nothing to do with um, what has happened other than nothing has happened. I mean, when you think about it, a man somewhere sitting in, I don't know, Yazoo City or somewhere, put down a little bit of dough when Dick Scruggs only had $5 million. And Dick Scruggs said, "Give me a little bit of your money and I'll give you a percentage of the take." And so the lawyers, as all lawyers know, it doesn't take a lot. You just tell them you're going to have money for the next 25 years. And even someone who can speak read from King James and really feel great about it, like Don Barrett and Dickie Scruggs, who probably is reading from, I don't know, Job. I don't know, but and this wonderful guy with uh, a a 130-foot boat, who's such a litigator, um, who could borrow from anybody and be successful no matter what. The Rice firm, the people who succeeded, the ones who have the lawyers knew. They knew a long time ago, and I read it. I'm the only one who ever sat in a room and could actually tell the story. The plain people sat in these rooms for years and years and years, and they never said anything. They saw the same documents, and the documents were all kept in the same place in Kansas City under lock and key, and you never saw anything except one thing. One thing that Dick Daynard saw, and he said that it was a dangerous document, and I doubt that he feels that way now. But nevertheless, what is so amazing about this is that nobody ever built anything, nobody ever did anything. The people like Mike Moore, the Haltz Group, the people who actually thought that they were, I mean, even if you thought for one moment that they were doing it idealistically, for idealistic reasons, you just have to believe that today, what are they doing it for? Because there's nothing tangible that we can see. The lady who died recently, blood streaming from her mouth, her 18-year-old daughter, watching her die because the hospice people were taking care of her, but they weren't there, and she had to run. She had lung cancer. I mean, women can get lung cancer at 32 or in their 20s, and this lady was 45 years old. Now, what did the people from Mississippi do for this lady in this great settlement? This wonderful settlement that was meant to take care of tobacco and was so highly touted as being the thing that was going to be for 25 years the salvation for what was wrong with our society. Well, you have something called the American Legacy Group, and you have various groups. It reminds me of the American Cancer Society and the people who make more money than actually distribute. They don't have anything to do. Well, I mean, what are they doing? What are they doing? They're employed. That's it.
So who benefited from this master settlement agreement?
God knows. I don't have any idea. I mean, but it's gone on for 12 years, and well, I've mentioned the lawyers benefit, but that's only a tangential part of this. The tobacco industry benefited. That's it. That's about it. No human being should have to endure the humiliation of suffering under the tobacco industry's power. And it's only in the United States. God knows Brazil and parts of South America have more control over their tobacco companies. Even though Brazil produces more tobacco and exports more or as much as China, but we really don't care. I don't think that the doctors that are out there, I don't think that the medical field that's out there, I don't think there's any grasp of it. Certainly, there's a history of a connection between medical doctors and the voting and the lobbying between them and the tobacco companies. There's all kinds of people to blame before 1994, but why after they made this agreement did we have nothing? We had nothing. I remember Mike Moore. I mean, who I was vaguely associated with. I had a couple of interviews with him. One prior to when I was in a case in Louisville, and I was the defendant and the counterclaim, and then I had a federal lawsuit here, and everybody except the people who were responsible for anything were named. They were named John Doe's. My name came up as in the federal case, I guess because I was the only one that could be targeted, so to speak. The rest of them, I don't think. I really don't think even a conservative company like Brown & Williamson ever cared about winning anything here, losing anything here. They knew that as long as they could get the state legislators to bind them to keeping taxes low and to having a steady income, so to speak, coming in, which they could deduct everything on their IRS, and they're part of a gigantic conglomerate, perhaps the biggest or outfit in the entire world, Bat Industries, and they're in every country. It's frustrating to think that the master settlement agreement, which wasn't finished off by Mike Moore, but was by Governor Christine Gregoire, has had no impact whatsoever. It does nothing. The last thing I can see is there's a lady by the name of, and she makes you know that she's Dr. Cheryl Heaton or something like that, American Legacy, and it's got a grand board and a grand board of directors, and what do they do? What do they do for their money? I don't really care what they make, but I care for what they do. Now, recently I saw them working with Walmart, trying to let people have some say in whether they should have a patch or something to do with quitting. Well, there's nobody who knows any more about quitting than I do. And yet, for some reason, I've been the pariah. I've been the pariah since the beginning. And I kind of enjoyed it after a while, because being a pariah, and once in a while, someone would step in and say, "Oh, yeah, you need to talk to somebody," and I ended up getting Richard Denard on the phone, who kind of kept me on a leash, and he would say something like, the former intelligence guy who stole some documents wants to talk to the authority, and so I would get on the phone. I don't talk normally to anybody, and certainly not the press, and I made a mistake a couple of times, but on the other hand, I seem to be all through this, I was held on a leash by first the courts, and then certainly by the Scruggs group, and there was no question in my mind that that's an intensely devoted operation to keep me out of any kind of sensible way of describing to you exactly what's going on. What's going on is that you lost 12 years. The American public, have lost 12 years, a whole bunch of money, which is basically written off in your taxes, and you've given it over to a bunch of lawyers who got fat and fatter and fatter. But they manage to come up with nothing as far as the RICO case. That was absolutely absurd. I have some personal experiences in dealing with people, but nobody's really interested in hearing the story, so I'm telling it. I'm going to tell you the oral history of the Master Settlement Agreement. And the first thing that I think is important is for you to know that you got ripped off. You basically didn't get anything except for you, people who are in the tobacco companies. You successfully got a heist. You really did. You were successful at getting what you wanted, which is to neutralize the people who could probably sue you and get your money off of the stock markets. On the other hand, nobody ever wins or loses that way. You just get a status quo. So you got the status quo. Tobacco companies got the status quo. Now, what's happening now? Well, some people will tell you that there's some lawsuits out there and somebody's winning big time. Why in the world would one person get $32 million from a lung that is, from a lung cancer case, and another person would get zip? Well, you're not going to have a lot of lawsuits, first of all, not with tort reform. I mean, the Republicans moved in, they took that over. And the second thing is there's really not much left except slim pickings. And unless you're living unrealistically, your average ambulance chaser doesn't know much about litigation. And to the credit of Woody Wilner out there in Jacksonville, Florida, Woody, you wouldn't have won that case if you hadn't had some documents. Well, we got documents now. There's plenty of documents, but we don't have anybody who's going to do anything about it because the tobacco industry won. And that lady who died the other day, bleeding to death in front of her 18-year-old daughter, is not going to be part of American legacy's write-up. I mean, yeah, you get some touch of this and that, but which matters very little. And the lawyers who were involved and are still involved are gaining more and more and more money every year. And the lawyers who didn't even know squat or doodly squat, which is more appropriate, are still gathering up a lot of money. I think the biggest mistake of all was letting the CTR off the hook. The Council for Tobacco Research off the hook. No documents. Biggest sham, biggest scam. And what did the first thing happen in the tobacco litigation? They threw them out. Tobacco Institute, same way. But the CTR was really the most interesting destruction, because you destroyed the heart and soul of what would have been something criminal. And why didn't you criminalize anybody? You didn't. You never will. And yet, the interesting part, it's over. Next 12 years, we're going to have the same thing. And maybe it doesn't even get a slight bit better.